Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to stick to Hong Kong and we're going to return to a brewery that's featured on the channel a couple of times before. I've had some really nice beers from these guys over the last couple of years, a few different styles, and if people were to ask me about this brewery, I would say that they're best known for using different adjuncts in their beers and also being a little bit experimental. But the beer we're going to have a look at today is one of their latest releases. It's going to go into bigger production from what I understand and be contract brewed in another place so that they have the volume of the beer that they want. And I actually have tried this one before at the launch party at the brewery, which was quite fun. So I know this is a pretty good beer, but I'm quite curious to see what the canned version is going to have in store for us. So hopefully it's another good beer, hopefully it's as good as I remember, hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, like I said, we are going to stick to Hong Kong. We're going to stick to Kowloon side where I am, of course, go round the bay to Kwun Tong, and that means that we're going to have a look at another beer from Moonzen Brewery. So this particular beer is called Moonzen exLager. It comes in at 4.5% ABV, and as the name kind of suggests, this one is a sort of pale, hellish blonde lager basically. So yeah, this should be pretty nice. So, as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Moonzen before, and we will no doubt add more to that list at some point in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated, and remember you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. So just go in there, use the little search bar, put in your hometown, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever you like. If I've reviewed beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the Hong Kong playlist along with a number of other things, and that is being added to quite regularly now because I am of course based out here, and you can check out the playlist of beers from the other countries as well because there are some very, very interesting things on the channel these days. But yeah, let's go on to my brewery notes then, and I'll tell you a wee bit about Moonzen Brewery once again then. So, Moonzen Brewery was founded by Laszlo Raphael along with his wife Michelle Wong in December of 2013. So Laszlo apparently grew up in Mexico and developed an interest in Chinese language and culture as a teenager, but later he homebrewed for a number of years in 5-gallon batches in his apartment, and Michelle spent her early years in Hong Kong and studied theology and religion before working in academia. But when they started the company, neither had any experience of the industry, and Laszlo had been an oil engineer working in Tunisia, while Michelle had been working at a university in Hong Kong. But they started the brewery in 2013, and their first premises was a very small industrial unit in the Kwun Tong area of the city. But in this space, they produced very small batches of only 100 litres. But in 2016, after a strong few years, they moved into their current and larger premises. So in this new premises, they installed a new brewing system where they could brew 1,000 litre batches, and soon they were producing in the region of 20,000 litres of beer per month. But later in 2020, they opened their first bar called Mooncock in the Mong Kok area of Kowloon, which is quite close to me. I've still not been to check it out. Actually, that's something that I do need to have a little look at. But they serve kind of a mix of like Mexican, Chinese fusion food there, and they have a lot of the Moonzen beers on tap, of course. So it's definitely worth checking out. So I will do that for an out and about video at some point soon. But the name Moonzen that they use for the brewery comes from the Cantonese phrase Mun San, which means door guardians, and these are very often displayed on the fronts of Chinese buildings to guard the door. And this apparently was the name. This apparently got its name from the time that they spent in Beijing together, Raphael and Laszlo and Michelle. But each of the 5 beers in the main range that they started out with is named after one of the Chinese pantheons, which is quite cool. But over the years, of course, they've produced more and more beers, so they haven't really been able to stick to that as much as they did in the early days. And as of July 2024, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have brewed 195 different kinds of beer according to Untappd. So yeah, that is everything I can really tell you about the brewery. Their imagery, of course, is one of the main things that kind of attracts people to look at this brewery's cans and bottles and stuff like that. But the beer is pretty interesting too. You get some really interesting things, like with the last one we had was a wheat wine with oolong tea and stuff like that in it, which was kind of interesting. But yeah, that's this one is like a more kind of straight up beer compared with some of the other ones, I would say. But yeah, if you want to learn a little bit more about Moonzen Brewery, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's go on and actually have a little look at the beer itself. So I'll just let you have a wee look at the artwork on this one before we open up there. There you can see Moonzen exLager on the front there. You can see some of the Chinese sort of Pantheon style artwork on the side there, which I think is pretty cool. Plain silver top on the can there. This one incidentally is 330 milliliters, and I believe this one, I think it might have been contract brewed down in Vietnam. I'm sure that's what they said. It was brewed, contract brewed down there. But yeah, this one it says best before the 21st of July 2025. So yeah, still got a good amount of time on this one, of course. But yeah, 4.5% lager, this one, the Moonzen exLager. Let's get it out into the glass and see what it's all about. I've been looking forward to reviewing this one actually. It feels like a wee while since we did the wheat wine that I had from Moonzen recently. So let's get this guy out into the glass and see what it's all about. There we go. Well, that looks pretty nice, I have to say. So before the head disappears, you can see that the beer poured with about a finger of a frothy, slightly cream coloured head there. But you can see nice small bubbles on the surface there, and it gets, you know, they stay about the same size up toward the top, but you can see that head is just receding away there to give you, and it will eventually just give you a nice kind of foamy layer, maybe a bit of a ring around the edge of the glass. But yeah, it looks really nice, this one. You can see this one is pretty damn clear actually. So this one, as I say, is meant to be, it is intended just as a kind of standard, very drinkable lager, of course. That's what the guys at Moonzen told me. But the colour of this one obviously is a lovely kind of pale, rich golden straw colour. The colour of your beer, of course, is determined by a few things. One, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. Two, length of your wort boil is also going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugar caramelizes, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. Any barrel aging that you do or any adjuncts you put in will affect the colour of the beer as well, but obviously you don't have to care about that too often when it comes to lager beers. But if you did, you know, it would play quite a big role. But yeah. Not too much in the way of visible carbonation with this one, which is a bit surprising. I remember it having a good little bit of crispness to it, this beer. But yeah, you can see the clarity of this one is pretty good. It's just the condensation on the edge of the glass there that's giving you that sort of naturally hazy kind of impression. But yeah, all in all, pretty much what you would expect of a light lager beer. In terms of its appearance, nothing really surprising about that. So let's go on and have a little look at the aroma of this one then and see what it's all about. I'm very, very curious about this one. Yeah, I mean, it is pretty much what you would expect. This one, as I say, it is just intended as a kind of generic lager beer for these guys. That's what from what I understand, it's meant to be like a generic lager beer but brewed with better quality, and it gives you all that kind of vibe from the aroma, in all honesty. So for me, you're getting everything you'd expect. You're getting a little bit of maltiness in there, you're getting a little bit of that almost kind of corny sweetness. I can't remember if they said there was a bit of rice in this one or something like that, but yeah, this one you get a little bit of kind of green hoppy characters, or a little tiny bit of fruitiness in there. Yeah, it's everything you'd expect. So let's just break that aroma down and describe it for you a wee bit more in depth, but it is pretty straightforward. It almost smells like it's got a little bit of lime or something in it as well. So yeah, the backbone of the beer, you do have a little bit of that sort of fresh white bready bread crust coming out of this one. That jumps out at you right away. So yeah, a little bit of fresh white bready bread crust in there. There are little elements of maybe, you know, Jacob's cream cracker. Yeah, there's a little bit of a Jacob's cream cracker to this one. there's a little bit of an almost woodiness in there as well. But then yeah, you've got quite a little bit of, there's a little bit of like fresh white bread. I do get quite a bit of like an oily, ricey type character out of this one as well, which is kind of interesting. So yeah, definitely some sort of oily, ricey character in there. I don't know if I'd say corn. It doesn't come across quite as sweet and distinctive as corn, but there has to be some sort of ricey note in this one. It comes across quite similar to a number of these like Asian macro lagers that you get. It's just got a little bit of that element to it, which is quite familiar from those, I would say. But yeah, the aroma of this one, I think, is quite, it really is quite interesting in that particular regard. But yeah, I think you have, as I say, you've got a little bit of breadiness in there. You've got that little bit of cracker, the little bit of wood, some white bread for sure, a little bit of oily, ricey character as well. Then you've got some nice, biscuity notes coming out of this one. Yeah, sweetness on top of that. There's a little bit of like sweet, oily caramel in there. Little bit of, there's a teeny little bit of caramel in there. Some nice McVitie's digestive biscuity character. Yeah, just that little bit of oily, concentrated, boozy biscuit as well. So yeah, the way that this one goes together in the malty side of things is quite nice, and it's kind of what you would expect from a beer such as this one, in all honesty. So yeah, let's have a little look at the kind of hoppy side of things and see what it gives us. Yeah, so for me, hoppy side of the beer is kind of what you'd expect. There's a little bit of earthiness in there, there's a little touch of herbal character, but it smells kind of, again, quite straightforward. You get a little bit of floral aromaticity, you get some wet kind of grassiness and stuff like that in there. It's probably using a little bit of Hallertau or Tet Nang hop or something, something along these lines is probably what's in there. Yeah, I think that's really fair. Yeah, a bit of grassiness. It has a wee bit of zestiness to it as well, but then yeah, just a little bit of floral note, a little bit of earthiness, a little bit of herbal character. That's about it. So on the fruity side of things, again, it's kind of what you'd expect. There's a little bit of like oily pear in there. There's some sultanas. There's some kind of fresh green apple. But like I say, I would suspect that this beer has a good little bit of lime in it, in fact. So yeah, there's a nice sort of oily, limey character in there as well. So yeah, the way that kind of pieces together, I think, is very, very nice. Nice kind of oily, limey note to this one. Yeah, I don't know if there's really much more that we can say about the aroma of this one. It's quite straightforward. Yeah. It's kind of what you'd expect, in all honesty. As I always say though, take a little bit of time to enjoy the aroma of the beer before you get stuck into it. That's always half the experience when it comes to craft beer and whiskey and sake and stuff. But yeah, this one is definitely worth taking a little bit of time to enjoy, because it's a little bit different. It does come across as a wee bit different to the other Moonzen beers, if you know the brewery. So yeah, let's have a taste of this one then and see what it's all about. This one is the Moonzen exLager, a 4.5% pale lager from Moonzen Brewery in Kwun Tong, Kowloon here in Hong Kong. Let's get stuck in. Slàinte, skål, cheers. Yeah, I mean, it's one of these beers, to expect something that's really light, really drinkable, easy going, and that's what this beer is going to deliver for you, absolutely. I think this it's pretty solid, actually, as far as, kind of easygoing, light lager beers go. You can't really ask for too much more than this, in all honesty. And I will say, I'm having to drink it a little bit conservatively, obviously, because we're filming the review and things like that, and we want to talk more about the flavour. But as a session beer, this one, and I know this from the tap version too, It's very, very easy to drink, and it's enjoyable in that sense. It gives you what you want from this beer, that bit of refreshment, that little bit of bite, a little bit of sweetness. You know, it does deliver on what you expect. So just be aware of that. I'm drinking this one more slowly just to try and describe the flavours to you a little bit more in a nerdy way, of course. But yeah, let's just break the flavour of this beer down a wee bit and describe it for you more in depth as we always do. So middle third of your palate then, the backbone of the beer, you've got that lovely kind of fresh white bready bread crust in there. It's a little bit like a Helles lager in that sense. It has a little bit of that kind of drier German white bread in there. So you've got that lovely sort of crisp white bready character in there. As you move further forward on that middle third of your palate, you've got a little touch of kind of woody and crackery type character to the beer as well. So yeah, the woody crackery sort of thing in this one is really, really nice. And then you get that kind of lingers into the aftertaste as well, I have to say. But then above that, above the kind of the woody I would say, yeah, it's the bread crust in the base, the woodiness a little bit further forward, then you've got the crackery layer. Above that, above that you have like a layer of kind of more dense brown bready character. Actually, I do really like that. So yeah, you've got that more dense brown bready character coming out of this beer. And that's quite nice as well. As I say, this beer, the more that you drink of it, it does give you a wee more of a kind of graininess and a little bit of dryness actually, which I do quite like. But then yeah, above the kind of slightly brown bready layer that you've got, you do have the more kind of white bready, pale malty type layer in there, and that has a little bit of a crackery type note to it as well, which is interesting. I do get the impression that there could be a little touch of rice in this one, because it just has a little bit of that almost oily, ricey character to it, this beer, but not too much. Actually, I would definitely say that, not too much, in all honesty. So yeah, above the kind of white bready layer, I think there's a little touch of an oily, ricey character, but then above that, you have more of a McVitie's, you have more of a McVitie's kind of digestive biscuity type layer as well, so you can feel that. But in the dead center of your palate, there's a little bit of that more oily, concentrated biscuit, you know, I would say. So yeah, and that is of course the alcohol coming out of the beer. This one is only 4.5% ABV, so that effect is not too pronounced, of course, but yeah, it is definitely kind of noticeable in this one for sure. So yeah, I think that's everything we really need to say about the middle third of your palate in this beer, in all honesty. It's quite straightforward, but as I say, it delivers what you want from this type of beer, really. So remember, with your palate, that sweeter flavours come out further forward, more dry and bitter flavours come out further back. So the border region between middle and back third of your palate, you get a little bit of bready build up in there, the wee bit of brown bread in the base, and the white bread on top. But yeah, the back third of your palate is going to give you very similar flavours to the middle third of your palate, just at different intensities. But yeah, the base of that back third of your palate, you can feel the kind of bread crusty character in there. You've got a bit of the cracker above that. You've got the lighter, taller, more kind of brown bready layer sitting above that. The white bready layer is above that one. And then yeah, above all of that, you have the you've got a little bit of the kind of more drier side of the biscuity character just creeping over the top there. And then of course, on top of the back third of your palate, it's all about the yeasty side of the beer. So let's have a wee look at that yeasty side of things then. So yeah, the yeasty side of the beer for me is kind of more, I'd say it's like at the centre of it, it's like a little bit more kind of brown bready, and then as you move further out from it, it gets a little bit more white bready. Then the exterior of it is a little bit more kind of bread crusty, actually. So yeah, it's got a little bit more of a kind of white bready, bread crusty sort of thing to it, which I think is quite interesting. Maybe a bit more crackery as well. So yeah, brown bread, white bread, and then a white bready bread crust around the edge. But definitely you can feel the back third of your palate. It's the back third of your palate, the flavour is taller. Then as you move further forward into the middle third of your palate, it just kind of condenses down and squashes together that little bit more. So yeah, the way the malty and yeasty side of this beer goes together is quite nice. It gives the beer quite a crisp and quite refreshing sort of thing. One other thing I would say, you know, upon reflection of like doing the flavour of this beer, perhaps on that border region between middle and back third of your palate, I think there could be a bit of Pilsner malt in this one, because that's given the beer just this little bit of bite. And that would explain some of the kind of biscuity, sweet flavours as well. So I think probably Pilsner malt has been used in this one, but it's a nice beer, this one, absolutely. I think this is very, very nicely done. So yeah, let's go on to the hoppy side of the beer then and just see what we have. So yeah, back corners of your palate then, the green component first. You've got a little touch of earthiness in there, but again, not too pronounced. As you move further forward, it's a little bit herbal. Then as you push further forward beyond that, it gets a little bit more floral and kind of aromatic and things. And then round the front curve of the tongue, the beer is definitely just that little bit lighter and more grassy, I would say. So yeah, the way that all of that pieces together, I think, is pretty nice. The grassiness has a little bit of zestiness into the aftertaste. I've still not decided with this one if there has been a little bit of lime added into it, because whenever you add fruit into beer as an adjunct, it's always going to suppress a little bit of the green component, and there's not too much of that going on here. But yeah, let's have a little look at the front third of your palate then, and the fruity side of things. So border region between front third and middle third of your palate, you get a nice little bit of bready build up in there. You can feel the brown bread in the base, the white bread on top. And then there's a wee bit of the almost Pilsner malty crispness above that, but yeah, the base of the front third of your palate is again that sort of bread crusty character. You've got the brown bread on top of that, the white bread, and then just a wee, I'd say just brown bread and white bread, and then above that you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters kind of roll their way out of the beer. So yeah, let's have a wee look at the fruity esters in this beer then. Yeah, all things that you kind of expect from this style, in honesty. So you have you have a little bit of, I would say, at the back of that front third of your palate, you've got a little bit of like a kind of more zesty kind of citrus there, but then as you move further forward, you get a little bit of a kind of oily pear, some sultana of course as well. Then as you move into the centre of that front third of your palate, it's got a little bit of dry apricot underneath, and then yeah, more of a sort of lemony limey type character as you reach the kind of front tip of the tongue, and then of course you're into the kind of grassy esters where all the zestiness comes out. So yeah, the way that all of that kind of pieces together in this one, I think, is really, really quite interesting. So it's a big thumbs up from me. I think the way that this beer pieces together is really nice. It's, you know, if you want a big drinkable lager beer, then this one is going to deliver that for you. My only complaint about it, I guess, would be that it's a 330ml can. It really should be like a half litre, actually, but that's just that's me being very, very picky to point that out. But I'm sure, you know, if the sales and stuff go well and the production picks up, they probably will consider putting it in the half litre cans at some stage. But yeah, I think we can leave it at that for the flavour of this one. It's pretty straightforward, this beer, but it gives you everything you'd want from this type of beer, as I've said a few times in the video. But yeah, let's round off with just a wee quick look at the mouthfeel then. So for me, the beer is light bodied. Carbonation does have a degree of crispness to it as well, but it has that more kind of oily character to it. So it's light bodied and crisp, but quite oily in a sense. And then yeah, you have this really nice sort of, with the malty backbone, you've got a little bit of dryness underneath, the kind of smoothness in the middle, and the wee bit of the oily sweetness on top. And I do like that. The beer has that bit of Pilsner malty crispness in there. But then yeah, you've got that nice little touch of oily, fruity note to this one as well. In terms of the IBU count on this beer, I think it's maybe about 20-ish IBUs. You do get that little bit of bitterness lingering into the aftertaste and that wee bit of zestiness too, which I think is very, very nice. So yeah, as I always say, take a little bit of time to enjoy. Yeah, take a little bit of time to enjoy the flavours of this beer and things like that, because it is pretty nice. As I say, you'll get a bit more out of this one if you gulp it and session it and things like that. For me, I've just been, you know, sipping it and doing the flavour, so you will get a wee bit more out of it in a big tankard glass or something like that, but still very enjoyable to do as a kind of flavour analysis too. But yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. This was the Moonzen exLager from Moonzen Brewery in Kwun Tong here in Hong Kong, a 4.5% light Helles type lager beer. This one definitely worth trying if you get the chance. So yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Moonzen Brewery as well, and we will no doubt return to these guys again at some point in the very near future. But until then, slàinte, skål, cheers, and I'll see you guys in another review very, very soon. Ciao just now.